Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gauranitai, Jai Gauranitai, Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai युगधर्म हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्योत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। It is Bhagavatya Uttama Shloke, it's not Bhagavati. You can refer the shloka. Okay, we're reading from Canto 5, Chapter 5, Lord Rishabdev's Teachings, Text 30. So it's a very long prose. We'll directly read word to word meaning. We'll chant, we'll read word to word meaning translation purport. Tatra tatra, here and there. Pura, cities. Grama, villages. Akara, mines. Kheta, agricultural places. Vata, gardens. Kharavata, villages in valleys. Shibira, military encampments. Vraja, cow pens. Ghosha, residential places of cowherd men. Sartha, resting places for pilgrims. Giri, hills. Vana, forests. Ashrama, in the residential places of hermits. Adishu, and so on. Anupatham, as he passed through. Avanichara, Apasadahi, by undesirable elements, wicked persons. Paribhuyamanaha, being surrounded. Makshikabhihi, by flies. Eva, like. Vanagajaha, an elephant coming from the forest. Tarjana, by threads. Tadana, beating. Avamehana, passing urine on the body. Shtivana, spitting on the body. Grava Shakrit, stones and stool. Rajaha, dust. Pakshepa, throwing. Potivata, passing air over the body. Duruktahi, and by bad words. Tat, that. Avignayan, without caring about. Eva, thus. Asat samsthane, habitat not fit for a gentleman. Etasmin, in this. Deha upalakshane, in the shape of the material body. Sat apadeshe, called real. Ubhaya anubhava swarupena, by understanding the proper situation of the body and the soul.
by understanding the proper situation of the body and the soul.
Swamahima
Swamahima
in his glory.
in his glory.
Avasthanena by
Avasthanena
being situated.
by being situated.
Asamaropita
Asamaropita
aham mama abhimanatvat
aham mama abhimanantvat
from not accepting the misconception of I and mine.
from not accepting the misconception of I and mine.
Avikhandita
Avikandita
manaha
manaha
undisturbed in mind.
undisturbed in mind.
Prithvim
Prithvi
all over the world.
all over the world.
Ekacharaha
Ekacharaha
alone.
alone.
Pariba Brahma
Pariva Brahma
he wandered.
he wandered.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Rishabdev began to tour through cities, villages, mines, countrysides, valleys, gardens, military camps, cow pens, the homes of cowherd men, transient hotels, hills, forests, and hermitages. Wherever he traveled, all bad elements surrounded him, just as flies surround the body of an elephant coming from a forest. He was always being threatened, beaten, urinated upon, and spat upon. Sometimes people threw stones, stool, and dust at him, and sometimes people passed foul air before him. Thus people called him many bad names and gave him a great deal of trouble, but he did not care about this, for he understood that the body is simply meant for such an end. He was situated on the spiritual platform, and being in his spiritual glory, he did not care for all these material insults. In other words, he completely understood that matter and spirit are separate, and he had no bodily conception. Thus, without being angry at anyone, he walked through the whole world alone. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur says, Deha smriti nahi yara, samsara bandhana kaha tara. When a person fully realizes that material body and world are temporary, he is not concerned with pain and pleasures of the body. As Sri Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama paino nityas tam titikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their appearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. As far as Rishabdev is concerned, it has already been explained, Idam Shariram Mama Durvibhavyam. He did not at all possess a material body, and therefore he was tolerant of all the trouble offered to him by the bad elements in society. Consequently, he could tolerate people's throwing stool and dust upon him and beating him. His body was transcendental and consequently did not at all suffer pain. He was always situated in a spiritual bliss. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddheshe junatishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Since the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, he is in the heart of hogs and dogs also. If hogs and dogs in their material bodies live in a filthy places, one should not think that Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature also lives in a filthy place. Although Lord Rishabdev was maltreated by the bad elements of the world, he was not at all affected. Therefore, it is stated here, Swa Mahima Avasthanena. He was situated in his own glory. He was never saddened due to being insulted in the many ways described above. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vandavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatam Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hare Krishna. So Rishabh Dev has given teachings to his sons, especially Bharat Maharaj, and then he's acting on what he has taught. In entire teachings of Rishabh Dev, we can see that how he instructed that go deeper in spiritual life and don't get affected by the temporary world of this temporariness of this material world. And here, in few shlokas we see yesterday and today's shloka, that how Rishabh Dev was just tolerating whatever was happening around. He was just tolerating. Can you imagine we go for book distribution and people are like passing urine on us and stool on us, and very difficult to imagine also. Someone says something to us, we are not able to tolerate. What is this tolerance all about? See, sometimes it might happen that some situation is there and it's out of my control. I cannot do anything. So I keep quiet. So that is like our incapacity. That's not tolerance. What is tolerance? You have full capacity to retaliate at that time, to give back, but still you withdraw, still you suppress yourself, you tolerate. That's called tolerance. This is for us, as sadhakas. But when it comes to pure devotees, and here the Lord Himself, we understand that it is not that they're tolerating, it is their nature. It is not that they're tolerating, but it is their high realization, or when it comes to pure devotees, not about the Lord I'm saying, it is their connection with the Lord, and it is their realization that how they're not this body but spirit soul, and how they're part and parcel of the Lord, and how they are in service of the Lord or servants of the Lord. Now, since they realize that they're on the spiritual platform and they're servants of the Lord, so what happens? Naturally, they're detached from the body. Anything happens to the body, they are least affected and least bothered. So when Rishabdev is going through all this, for him, since here it's very nicely mentioned, he completely understood that matter and spirit are separate and he had no bodily conception. So there was no bodily conception at all for him. So for him, this was something which was happening to the body and he was least bothered about it. But now when it comes to us, we are sadhakas. So we have to tolerate. That's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in third verse of Shikshastakam, he says, Trinadapi sunichena taror eva sahishnunam, amanina manadenam. So saying taror eva sahishnunam. You look at the example also what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has chosen. He could have told something else. Taror eva sahishnunam. He's comparing and he's telling us that how our tolerance, that mat can be spread. Mataji can also sit on the mat. She's sitting down. So, tree. If you see the tree standing on the street, wherever it is standing, and it is just tolerating whatever it is. Even if it's scorching heat, or it's rain, or it's snowy winter, or whatever it is, the tree is just tolerating. And here we are expected to be more tolerant than a tree. My God, that's too much of expectation from us. But then we are expected to do that. Amanina manadena. Doesn't matter what other people do to us, but then we are supposed to give respect to them. And literally, it's so wonderful to see in ISKCON, we have these great personalities are following these principles. So wonderful, to see this. So wonderful. Now these different sannyasis that we have, Prabhupada disciples, we have, and other great senior devotees. If we spend some time with them, we'll understand they're following these different principles of humility, tolerance, giving respect to others, and so on. Today is Srivas Thakur's appearance. For Srivas Thakur also, tolerance was not something, or it was not that he's supposed to tolerate. He was okay with whatever happens, detached from this body, detached from this material world all the time. Because he was completely attached to the lotus feet of Krishna. To be more specific, completely attached to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all the time. His main mood was somehow to give pleasure to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Today morning in the base I was sharing this pastime, that how when Srivas Thakur's son died, and he was the only son, it was not like he had 10 sons and one went, so it's okay. Only son when he died. Kirtan was going on, the nocturnal Kirtan was going on, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in ecstasy. And Srivas Thakur could hear that there is some crying sound that is coming. And then he goes to the inner chambers of the house. And there he sees Malini and others crying. Malini is the name of Srivas Thakur's wife. And when they were crying, look at Srivas Thakur's mood. He said that, keep your mouth shut. My Lord is dancing outside. There shouldn't be any interruption, any obstacle in his ecstasy. And if you continue crying, he said, I'll drown myself in Ganga and die. After such a dhamki, who will continue crying? All of them kept quiet. All of them kept quiet. And still, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he asked, stopping his dance, is there anything which has happened, anything inauspicious that has happened in this house? And Srivas Thakur is telling, after going and seeing all that, when he came back, when the dance was happening and when it was stopped, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking this question, that is there anything inauspicious that has happened? And look at the mood of Srivas Thakur. Look at the intensity of devotional service. He says that, oh Lord, in your presence, who is all auspicious, how can any inauspicious thing take place? This needs a really high level of faith and love towards the Lord, and we can see that in Srivas Thakur. And when everything happened, when the dance continued, and it was like Brahma Murta time, and they stopped the kirtan and everything. At that time, again the Lord asked, but Srivas Thakur didn't reveal anything. But another devotee came and said that only son of Srivas Thakur has died. And guess what? A devotee is not crying because of his son dying, but here Lord is crying. Lord started crying. And he said, oh Srivas, you're very, very dear to my heart. So these devotees we see, it is not artificial. It is natural. And this natural, I'm just using the word tolerance, it's not valid for Srivas Thakur and these pure devotees, but still for our understanding, using this word tolerance. It's natural for them to tolerate all this because of their intensity of love and devotion that they have in their hearts. Another instance, when these nocturnal kirtans would happen, there were so-called caste brahmanas around. And they were very much always envious that what is it happening in this closed room? Why we are not allowed? We are brahmanas. We are all qualified. Why we are not allowed? And they wanted to pull down the image of Srivas Thakur. So one such personality, Gopal Chapal, he arranged a lot of paraphernalia for Kali Puja at mid of the night in front of the house of Srivas Thakur. A lot of things were kept, wine and meat and this and that. A lot of things were kept which were not, which were inauspicious, which will not suit a Vaishnava's house or paraphernalia of a Vaishnava's house. So all that was kept. And Srivas Thakur, after the entire thing, he comes out in the morning and he opens his door and he sees all that in front of his house. Now, any ordinary person like myself, what the person would have done? Fatafat cleaned and then, before anyone gets up around. Yes, they would all wake up in Brahma Murta. Yes. So before anyone wake up, before anyone comes out of the house, and just clean it off and then behave as if nothing has happened. But Srivas Thakur, he started loudly shouting, "Come, come, see what I do at night. Come." And he started calling everyone. And he said, "See, this is what I do." Now, the ones who knew Srivas Thakur, they were knowing very well that he cannot do all this. And other people came and cleaned the entire thing. Other Vaishnavas, other devotees, they came and they cleaned the entire place. Can you imagine how these devotees who are connected to the Lord and who have intense mood of devotion towards the Lord, they are the ones who are above the bodily platform. If you see the jnanis, the highest level of realization for a jnani is what? I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul. And they are also able to tolerate various things like this. But since they are not connected with the Lord very strongly, and they don't have that love and devotion towards the Lord, for them it's very difficult to go beyond a certain level of tolerance like what Srivas Thakur did. He's calling everyone and defaming himself. So in this way we understand that this quality of tolerance will automatically manifest with time, no doubt. Because the quality of tolerance is already there within. As Krishna Prem is there within, similarly quality of tolerance is there. All the devotee qualities, all the divine qualities are there within all of us. Therefore it is said, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kare Uday. So it's not that we're supposed to purchase Krishna Prem or these qualities from outside. As and when we perfect our life through Shravanam and Kirtanam, what happens? Automatically those qualities will manifest. Krishna Prem will manifest. It was said that how do we understand that a person has attained Krishna Prem? This was the question that was asked. And one of the sannyasis of ISKCON, he was answering that the Krishna Prem of spiritual world, when it is manifested in the material world, that can be seen in the form of compassion. Seen in the form of compassion. So out of compassion, the devotee is ready to take anything and everything on himself. And he just wants to preach the message of Krishna consciousness. That's what Srila Prabhupada did. How much Srila Prabhupada tolerated? Can you imagine? Going to West and these all hippies around, not caring for the age of the old man and doing whatever they want. So initially, Prabhupada didn't get a lot of help. But then still Prabhupada just tolerated. And the Sunday love feasts and all, Prabhupada would cook like 14 plus items. Jayadvat Maharaj was very strong about this point. That even we should have every Sunday feast 14 items. Like that he was telling. Prabhupada would cook that. And at times, when I remember one of the pastime which I heard. So I think one of the disciple, after taking initiation, he was smoking cigarette. And Prabhupada got to know through another disciple. And then Prabhupada told him that go and tell him that I'll be rejecting him. Something like that. And then if he does not stop, I'll reject him. Something like that. Some warning. And this devotee asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, will you do this? Really you'll reject him? And Prabhupada said, no. How can I reject? How can I reject? So Prabhupada was ready to tolerate anything and everything just for the welfare of others. Now coming to our lives, even for us, I'll speak about a lot of brahmacharis and brahmachari aspirants are here. So for brahmacharis, you see how much tolerance is important. Like for example, especially when someone joins the ashram. So many things a person has to hear. I remember when I joined ashram, you're an irresponsible person. You didn't take care of your parents. You don't want to take care of your parents. You have become impotent. Trying to trigger all the anger that is possible. But since my superiors helped me out, they said, just tolerate, don't speak anything. Because a person who has got a Kshatriya blood, for him it's very difficult to tolerate. And then when they say, when people are saying different relatives are saying different things, like, maybe, and that was our reply. And I see same thing, in so many other brahmacharis, when they went through the same thing. So tolerance is something which is very, very important. Now this is like when we join ashram and we have a lot of opposition and all that. So tolerance is there. Another thing is, when a person is settled in the ashram, there will be a lot of other thoughts that will come. Maybe sexual desires might come, but as celibates, you have to maintain celibacy. Now there comes tolerance again, right? So one has to remain tolerant. And one thing is there that all this pleasure and pain is only connected to the mind, actually not to the body. Simple example. Say a nice feast is made, and say, you're nicely chastised, by another devotee. And you're like crying and you're morose and then you wipe your tears and you come for prasad and then a nice feast is kept in front of you. Say Chappan Bhog is kept in front of you. We'll not be able to relish. You're putting it in the mouth, but then you're not able to relish. Why? Because the pleasure and pain that is there is at the mind level. It's not on the level of senses. It's the level of the mind, right? So all these different thoughts that a brahmachari might get, we have to just tell ourselves that is at the level of mind. These are not my thoughts. These are not my desires. Let me just tolerate. This is one. Second is we feel a lot of discomfort in the ashram because some other devotee or whatever it is. So one thing I have to understand is this is a glorious opportunity to render full-time devotional service. So one has to trade something. Yes, it's very, very important. So when there's some discomfort at the bodily level or the mental level, we look at the higher aspiration to attain Krishna, to preach, to serve this mission, and those things can be tolerated. Right? If the higher aspiration is not there, then it's very difficult. If the person has come just like that in the ashram to eat and sleep, that is like very difficult. Anyways, in ISKCON Whitefield, though, that doesn't happen. It's very difficult. We are fully engaged. But still, at so many different ashrams I've heard, now people just enter thinking, oh, anyways, nothing to do, it's good, I'll also join and things like that. No. One has to be fully engaged. When we have a higher aspiration, I want to please Guru and Krishna, and I want to serve the humanity by helping them to get them in the fold of Krishna consciousness. When you have that higher aspiration, then whatever small things happen in this material world or in the association, we'll be able to tolerate. But if that higher aspiration is not there, then it's very, very difficult. Then little bit of management issue, little bit of devotee issue, little bit of some thoughts that come and the person is out. Recently I was hearing a case where some things from the past, some thoughts or some talks with some female, and the person is out of brahmachari ashram, not able to listen, not able to accept the good advice and instructions of senior brahmacharis. This will surely happen. This will surely happen if we don't tell her, let me just tolerate and just be there. Just be there. I remember when I was joining brahmachari ashram at that time, I don't know who was that. Someone was telling that we are not here to hit 4s and 6. We are here to do tuk-tuk. Just tuk-tuk. Maybe one run, two or whatever it is. We are here for tuk-tuk. We are here to be not out. That's it. We are not here for 4s and 6ers. That brahmachari was very nicely explaining this point. So it doesn't matter what other brahmacharis are. Sometimes this also happens. Sometimes the comparison comes. Oh, that devotee is doing so much. I am good for nothing. I am doing nothing. It doesn't matter. Everyone has got different capacities. Everyone is going to do some or the other service. For some people, the quantum of service will be really high. For some people, quantum of service will be less. That's okay. When that comparison comes, and who is doing this comparison? The mind is doing this comparison. So at that time, again, tolerance is very, very important. Where we tolerate and tell ourselves that let me do according to my capacity to please Guru and Krishna. Very, very important. Right? So all these different principles in the ashram matters a lot. This principle of tolerance at these different things at different times. Very, very important. Now another level of tolerance which I would like to talk about is at the level of leadership role. So all of you, all the brahmacharis are leaders, because we have to lead the society in some or the other way. And then the grihastha devotees are leading. For all of us, at the leadership level, tolerance is again very, very important. Very, very important. Because at times you will see that so many tantrums will be thrown at us at the leader's level. We have to just tolerate. And that leader is the best leader who can absorb all those emotions which are coming in from different places. So Harikshar normally shares this that how a leader should be. So he had heard from Gaurang Prabhu that His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he has this, every Prabhupada disciple, and especially Maharaj's example was given by Gaurang Prabhu since he has seen Maharaj closely. So he was saying that how anyone who comes with any issue onto Maharaj, he's like an emotional sink. Anyone with any emotion comes and all those emotions are synced. And Maharaj just absorbs all that and the person comes out happily with no problem, no issues. So leader has to go to that level where he's ready to absorb all these different. Firstly, we might be nicely chastised and blasphemed at times. We have to just tolerate. Sometimes people might come and directly tell us something. See, if we hear from some third party, it's still we'll say shayad nahi bola hoga. We can tell like that and tolerate. But then when someone comes and directly tells us something, one has to tolerate and there's no option. Now a leader has two options. One is tolerate and second is give back. Nicely blast. Now in this what will happen is, a spiritual leadership is all about retaining people in the fold of Krishna consciousness. But when we blast at someone, there is a high probability that that person gets a negative experience. And because of that negative experience, there's a high probability that the person might go out of Krishna consciousness. Then what good thing have we done for a devotee? Right? What good service have we done for the mission if we are throwing away one devotee because of our intolerance and our anger or whatever it is? And we have seen this, at least I have observed, that when we blast at someone and later we go and patch, still that knot will be there. Still that knot will be there. So again and again, His Grace Harikshit Prabhu, again and again, he keeps training me on this point. Just tolerate. Just tolerate. Once I went to him with some issue, with some subordinate doing something to me. I went to him and I told him, Prabhuji, this person is doing. And Prabhuji said, just tolerate, like I tolerated you. You also did the same thing to me. I tolerate, now you tolerate. Yes. Another very nice thing which I've seen in the leadership role is that we might see that some things are not happening properly. And as a leader, we'll have to correct that particular thing. At least from last many months, I'm trying this. There is no need of immediate intervention in that particular activity. And when you just tolerate, now we see that how with time the things settle. With time the people settle. With time the behavior settles. And literally, in some cases, I would not like to share the details, but in some cases where there were huge critical problems in lives of devotees, and I was also involved into that. So at that time, I saw that how this tolerance helps a lot, where the devotees were retained in devotional service, they were able to practice nicely with the same enthusiasm, in fact with the increasing enthusiasm. Right? So as a leader, spiritual leader, outside I don't know, outside and yes, people are paid, and then there is a leader they accept. And they tolerate because the payment will stop if they don't tolerate. But then when it comes to us as spiritual leader, we have to understand people are there in the spiritual fold only because they're inspired, only because of the inspiration, not because they're getting some incentive. So it's the role of a leader that he keeps inspired everyone by his increasing level of tolerance. One devotee asked a question to some other senior devotee that how much should we tolerate? How much ever you can. That was the answer. How much ever you can. I was in the washroom and I was hearing a class by Guru Maharaj. And he was telling about humility. He was saying कि अगर हमें रास्ते पे पीटा भी जाए फिर भी हमें कुछ नहीं बोलना चाहिए. And I was like, what are you saying? What are you saying? And if you see, this was the quality in Haridas Thakur, and he was beaten in 22 marketplaces. And he was tolerating. And look at the result. He was like 24/7 chanting the holy names of the Lord. Right? Obviously, these are all very, very high for us at the level of sadhakas. But understanding the higher goals in life, like for example, staying in the ashram for as many years as the Lord allows us to stay, and retaining people in Krishna consciousness, in the leadership role, and helping as many people as possible to bring them to the fold of Krishna consciousness. If we have these higher aspirations, and also to remain in association of devotees, and practice bhakti and finally attain Krishna. If these higher aspirations are there, then it will be somewhat easy, to tolerate. Otherwise, without higher aspirations, very, very difficult, to tolerate anything in this material world. Because we are known, for our ego. That's why we are here. We couldn't tolerate Krishna enjoying, so we are here. Can you imagine that? Yes. We wanted to just imitate what Krishna is doing. So we are here. So it's very easy, to become intolerant. But then again and again, through the teachings of Bhagavatam, through the examples of these great personalities, examples like Bharat Maharaj and others, we understand that how important it is to tolerate, to advance in devotional service. And with time, this tolerance will become our second nature. It will not be an artificial tolerance, but it will be a natural thing that a person will be able to do because of his intense mode of devotional service. I would like to pause here. If you have any questions, you can ask. Questions?
Like, I remember Harishit saying that like when pure devotees say we are the it is like they tell something that in their balance that I am Dina. I will come close. Yes.
No, he's just pulling the mat.
So then, like, they were, so Prabhuji was mentioning, like, they tell about the depth of Krishna consciousness, because depth of Krishna consciousness is unlimited, and they compare themselves with that. So then, that's how, so they are not lying, that's the thing Harishit Prabhuji was telling. So then, in case of Srivas Thakur, how to understand this, like, this past time you mentioned that Gopal Chapal kept that, and then in the morning he's telling that I do this every day. But,
It's like when devotees, especially in case of Srivas Thakur, everyone would glorify him. The pious people would glorify, saying, "Oh, how fortunate you are! Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dancing in your house, a nocturnal kirtan is happening in your house." So devotees don't like to, get any glorification. In this Parivartan festival, also I saw that when we would tell the devotees, Prabhuji, you did this service so nicely, you did this, and they're like, no. And there were some devotees who never came on the stage to receive. Out of their humility or whatever it is, they were like, no, I don't want, I'm good for nothing, this and that or whatever. So, when it comes to these devotees like Srivas Thakur, we see that they are so satisfied, they don't want this glorification. They feel it to be poison. They should feel it to be like poisonous. Right? So, to define oneself and prove that, see, this is how I am. This is how I am. This is what I'm doing. Or something like that. They just want to pull down their own image by themselves so that people don't glorify them. They don't glorify them. It's very difficult to understand. Because we will never do all this. Why will do all this? It's very difficult to understand. That's why it is said, Vaishnavira Kriya Mudra na Vigena Bhujai. Very difficult to understand the Kriya and Mudra of Vaishnav. What they speak, how they behave, what are they thinking at that particular point of time. Very difficult. Very difficult.
They are different kind of natures. But here also Lord himself, Rishabdev, when he is going, why the people are giving this kind of same things. Here also transcendental natures, like yesterday we gave above the material natures, that is called Avadhuta natures. Here also same like Avadhuta natures. But why this kind of things?
So here, if my understanding is, Lord is setting an example, how an Avadhut is. He's setting an example, and based on these different people around, yes. So see, finally, without Lord's inspiration, nothing is going to happen. Correct? So Lord has to only inspire all these people to do all this nonsense. But here, what at least my understanding is, Lord is setting an example that how an Avadhut should be. That is something which is He's setting. So like that. So there He was not setting that example. He was not setting that example.
So tolerance at what situations have to show tolerance and intolerance? For example, someone is saying the unity of the Lord. In that situation, should we tolerate or
Obviously, we shouldn't tolerate that. Where I was hearing this in some Bhagavatam class recently, they're saying that the best, I think Bhakti Prachar Parivarajak Maharaj is saying, And when we hear, such blasphemy or whatever, if you are capable to, prove the point properly, then it's okay. Or else, one should leave the place. That's the best way. Maharaj was saying that leave that place. That's the best way. If you are there in that place and you're not able to do anything, then we are part of that particular problem, part of that offense, like that he was mentioning. So we shouldn't tolerate that. So at least leave the place. Whatever happens to us, we have to tolerate. This is what is the principle. And whatever happens to others, we cannot tolerate. Like that. That's what is the principle. And by in Bhagavatam, we'll see that, how that principle is followed very nicely. If we have some time, please share your realizations.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. So, some points which I have taken away is pure devotees realize that they that they are not the body, and then they don't get affected by the bodily miseries. You very rightly said that pains and pleasure are simply in the mind. Yesterday I was also speaking about the same thing from the Bhikshu Gita, where this Avanti Brahmana gets this realization. It's a very thrilling realization. The moment you get it, you realize that you are completely separate from everything else. And those who realize this, that all the pains and pleasure are not coming because of karma, kala, time, demigods, planets, and all those things, but it's just in my mind, they surpass the clutches of material nature and they come in the category of avadhuta. So, however, another point which I took away today was tolerance is natural for the devotees because they are swa mahima avasthena. They are situated in their own spiritual glory. And I could very nicely relate this to a normal example, like you were mentioning. If we have a higher goal, we can tolerate any small things. Suppose if we tell, I was just thinking to myself that if someone tells me that okay, if you just walk for 100 steps you'll get a gold bag, and another 200 steps you'll get another gold bag, I'll keep walking for the rest of eternity because I have that great desire to attain that wealth. Similarly, Krishna is the greatest wealth. So if our goal is on that, then anything can be tolerated. So this is a very nice point which you made. Until we have a higher goal, we cannot tolerate. You very nicely inspired us by talking about leadership, how it is important for a leader to be an emotional sink. Again, that is not possible until the leader is deeply absorbed in bhakti ras and Krishna consciousness. In fact, this reminds me of one of the statements made by Harikshit Prabhu, that the best contribution one can make to the society as a servant or as a leader is by becoming deeply absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So then this tolerance comes naturally because one automatically feels, as soon as one comes at the Uttamadhikari platform, they feel that everyone else is better than me and I am just an insignificant. I'm not more important than this person sitting next to me. So I have to respect him because Krishna likes him. So this consciousness brings in that flavor of tolerance. A question was asked why the Lord is doing all these activities. So very nicely you have answered to set an example of the avadhuta. If you may kindly allow, I would like to present another angle here. Do I have? Okay. So we have heard that pastime where there was a particular book distributor distributing books in the train, and then she was beaten up by someone, and then the person who beat him up became a devotee. So the Lord is unconditionally in love with his parts and parcels, and some parts and parcels have this desire to beat him up and mistreat him. So by just allowing those parts and parcels to associate with him, either love him or beat him. In both ways, they are getting delivered. So this is one angle in which I am able to agitate my mind and think about. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice class, Prabhuji. So today class, the most of the point we were discussing about the tolerance and how how a devotee should be. It's like it's like nature of a devotee to be tolerant, but as a sadhaka, we have to practice this tolerance, and because of her tolerance, like we can avoid many dangers in our lives, so especially for the brahmachari. So uh, this is what I felt like, it's very important, especially for me as a sadhaka, to practice tolerance, not to uh, we may also, in situations we may also can respond immediately, but that you said, like, uh, once we react, then later when we go and pat them, but still that not remains. So it's better, like, not to react immediately and be tolerant, and let's we, after within a time, like, it may get automatic get settled, or we can see some better things happening, so then we react. So that was very nice point. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the nice class. So as I mentioned, that tolerance means not that I don't have capacity, I'm not able to control the situation. I'm just saying it's like an incapability. Having full capacity to retaliate but still keeping calm. So that is actually tolerance. And the summary which I took is getting deep in Krishna consciousness. Then all the good qualities like tolerance, everything, whatever mentioned. So everything will come naturally when we go deep in Krishna consciousness. And as of now, as a sadhaka, so the higher goals here should be higher goal to attain Krishna, to spread this message of Krishna consciousness. So when we have higher goal, so whatever may happen around external situations, so we can tolerate them easily and go. So with time, this come naturally, this tolerance part. As great devotees like Prabhupada, Srivas Thakur, as you mentioned. So those are very deep in their love and devotion for the Lord. So it's natural for them to tolerate the external bad situations. So the solution is going deep in Krishna consciousness and having a higher goal in life. So this will help to get all the qualities like tolerance and also all the other qualities. Hare Krishna.
So, yeah, one point you mentioned about this, how we can see the Krishna Prem that manifest. So Krishna Prem is there in the spiritual world, but when it comes in this material world, how it manifests? It manifests in the form of compassion. So, those are pure devotees of the Lord who have this Krishna Prem like Prabhupada. So they are ready to do anything and anything for preaching this message of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, so you can see from the examples of the great devotees in our ISKCON also. So there are many great devotees. They are facing so many problems, and still they are tolerating and they are showing compassion. They are still preaching all across the world, despite whatever happens to their body and. So yeah, that points I like.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, हमने बताया कि प्लेजर ऑफ एन्जॉयमेंट इज इन द माइंड लेवल, एंड और एक बताया कि टॉलरेंस क्या होता है कि हमारा कैपेसिटी होते हुए अगर हम चुप रहते हैं तो वो टॉलरेंस होता है, ऐसे नहीं कि हमारा कैपेसिटी नहीं है और हम चुप के आगे तो मेरा टॉलरेंस है. थैंक यू. हरे कृष्ण.
There is no need of immediate intervention is needed, and if something is going bad, I should tolerate that, and I should not speak about that immediately, and I should tolerate, and I should then all hankering for enjoyment coming in minds and the mind's thought, I have to just to tolerate it, and I have to look into it, the higher aspiration of Krishna consciousness. And I have one question, Prabhuji, that how to differentiate that in incapacitance and tolerance? That you told.
I think that will not be very difficult because in many situations we'll understand very clearly that it's a change. Because situation is out of control and I cannot do anything in that situation. So that is like not tolerance, it's just there. Even if we don't do anything, it will be just there. But when we know that I can do it, I can change the situation, and we are not doing it just for the higher purpose, then that's tolerance. So it will not be difficult. If you are stuck in some situation, it will not be difficult to understand. Because when situations are out of control, anyway it's out of control. So we'll not be able to do anything in that situation. That's our incapacity. We cannot do anything. So we just depend on the Lord at that time and nothing. So when we are depending on ourselves, in some situation, we have that capacity, we can change something, and we're depending on ourselves, there we have to understand, yes, here the quality of tolerance can be applied. Okay, thank you very much. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.